the other day, what was this? I don't know, a couple weeks ago, my son hit me in the crotch so hard that I thought I developed a hernia because I was just dozing on the couch and he's running back and forth on like the side of the sectional, and he full on trips at like insane toddler speed and tries to recover. But what actually ends up happening is I got a full force like toddler stiff arm straight to my crotch. So,
Oh my God.
now I've been hitting the genitals a lot. You've seen Extra Life. I used to skate. I've slid like rails down. I have never been in this much pain there in my life. Like, I had to go wake up April, and I was just like, I'm so sorry. I know it's your day to sleep in, but like, I can't move. Like, you know, so I thought I was gonna throw up.
It's
like,
ironic because that's where he came from.
Right.
He's destroying the very
attacking
home
the
he was
source.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'm like, okay, I'm dead. I literally had to like take a pain nap. Like I just like took painkillers and like just like curled up and went to sleep. So over the next couple days, my right nut starts swelling up a bit. And then also so like the spot right where your leg meets your groin, that like crease, you know, that goes along. I got just like,
Yeah, go ahead.
no, do you have a name for it?
The inguinal region, I believe, is it's called.
You're actually correct.
hell.
It is because I thought I had an inguinal hernia. Wow. I thought you were going to make something up.
No, I know some things.
Apparently. You know a lot of stuff about groins.
I'm kind of a groin connoisseur.
Can that be the name of this episode? So I get like this, like, right, like, I was like, it starts to swell, like right there just a little bit. Just like a little bump. And I was just like, that's weird. But then I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe I just have like an ingrown hair, right? Have you guys ever had that happen?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And so like, I was like, oh, fuck, I probably just have an ingrown hair. Over the next couple days, it proceeds to swell more and more and started to turn like kind of purplish. And I'm like, I like put Neosporin and stuff on it. And I was like trying to cut, and I was like, fuck, I bet I have an infected ingrown hair. So I was like, I guess I'll make an appointment with like a web clinic. I don't know what I'm going to have to do. Like I was not really looking forward to being like, yeah, hey, check this out.
Just imagine you're on chat roulette.
Yeah. So just keep going until you get a doctor. So I'm like, all right, I try and make a web appointment to like, you know, check it out or whatever. By the end of that day, like it went to like full crazy mode and I was in agony and I hadn't heard back. Like it swelled up. It was probably like this big.
Oh my
Started
God,
like
dude.
it had ripple swelling down like my left thigh, and
Dude.
it was not looking good, and I was like hurting. It felt like just this burning pressure. So that's when I was just like, okay, they haven't called me back, and like now I'm worried. And that's when I started thinking, I was like, oh God, Logan, like, you know, obliterated my balls the other day. Like I was like, oh my, you can get a hernia there. And I was like, I swear. And of course, like, oh great, what else can happen in this year? Like, awesome, let's deal with the hernia. So I find a clinic that takes walk-ins. And so I go there and I hobble my ass in, and I'm just like not feeling good. Nothing's not a good time. So the nurse asks me a bunch of questions. I tell her, and the doctor comes in, and she doesn't even look at it. The second she's like, and I was like, oh yeah, and there's also, you know, been some swelling in my right testicle, but it seems to be going down. She's like, you need to go to the ER. And I was like,
Oh,
what?
fuck.
And she was
I
like,
think it was a torsion.
yeah. She was like, we don't, like, anytime you have swelling, like, nope, like you go straight to the ER, because if it is testicular torsion, you will lose your ball.
Yeah, you have like a matter of minutes or hours before you just lose a bollock.
Yeah. So she's like, go to the ER right now. And I'm like,
Even better.
yeah. So I'm just like, okay. So like, she's like, we're not even gonna charge you for this visit. Just go to the one like right down the street. I'm like, all right. And so like hobble my way out. Like April to watch the kids. So I'm like driving, but I'm like so uncomfortable. So I'm like trying to like lean back and just like find a good angle. So I get in there and I check in, and it was the most awkward thing because there's like one other person in the waiting room, one person standing behind me, and they've got this like ultimate, it looks like bank teller plexiglass, like, right? And this lady is sitting at like the corner. And so she's just like,
So
and I'm like, what? She's like, I'm just like, I can't hear, and I'm like pushing my ear up to the little like slotted hole, and she's like, what's your name? And then we go through that, and then she's like, and what's the problem? So that's be like, I think I have a hernia.
My ball's falling off.
My ball is swollen. Like, you know, so I'm like yelling this in this room. And so then I go, and they're just like, well, I'll be with you or whatever. So I go and I sit down, and they were doing a good job. They had like certain chairs and like places so everyone could social distance. So that was good. But the only thing that made me feel a little bit better about that moment is I'm like, fuck me. And I'm just sitting in this chair. I hit the guy who was behind me. The only words I heard was testicular pain. Said like, just like that. And I was like, hey, I've got a ball brother. So they get me in. I'm like, yeah, I think I've got a hernia. They're like, all right, cool. Take your pants off. I'm like, great. Awesome. I would like to point out that this day is April and I's wedding anniversary.
Oh,
so
congratulations.
Happy anniversary.
Oh, yeah, thank you. It's great. So I'm pantsless with a nurse and a doctor. And the doctor's like, okay, I don't think it's a hernia. And I was like, okay, well, that's good news. He's like, I'm pretty sure what it is you got a skin infection from either like an ingrown hair or like you guys are getting one of those like heat blisters or whatever from like something just like rubbing up. Anyway, he's like, yeah, whatever it was, it just looks like it never came to the surface. So he's like, that can just happen. And then the like anytime you get that as like a little mini infection, then they go away, right? He's like, but it didn't have anywhere to go. So it just like kept developing under the skin. He's like, I'm like, okay. So like, what do we just need to do some antibiotics? He's like, no, we're probably going to have to lance it. And I was just like,
Oh God. Ew.
What does that mean?
oh, it sucked. They're like, also, we're going to need to ultrasound your balls just to make sure. And I'm like, cool.
Of course.
Congratulations.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So I'm
You're a
sitting
father
there.
of millions.
Yeah. So I'm sitting there pantsless with a towel over my crotch. And the guys, even the doctor said, after he said he's going to lance it, he's like, I'm gonna be real with you. Like, it's going to suck. And I'm just like, cool.
Did they numb it and stuff?
Cool.
And that's the worst part. So he tells me, he's like, we're gonna have to numb it up, and they have to give you a lidocaine shot. And if you've ever seen the size of the needle for a lidocaine shot, it is massive, right? It's not like epidural size, but it's significant. So first of all, this dude comes walking in, and he puts the syringe on the corner of the table next to me, like pointed at me, and then leaves. And I'm sitting there for I think like 20 minutes alone, pantsless, just staring at this huge fucking needle. And I'm just like,
That's like in a movie in a torture scene where they lay out all the torture devices to
Right.
the person so they can stare at them. Yeah, that's the same thing they made you do.
right. And I'm sort of like, oh, this is coming. Like, I see this. I am not looking forward to this. So then the guy's like coming in, he's like starting to get ready. And then the nurse comes in and she's like, okay. And she has another syringe. I'm like, what's that? And she's just like, oh, well, this is going to be for the pain. And I'm like, what? She's like, it's not going to help with that. But like, you know, this is for like your general pain, like later. And I was like, I just had this moment because I just remember being like, but that comes in pill form. You see, look what this guy's about to do to me. Like, and she gives me a shot in the arm. And then this
It's
dude,
just comical at this point.
I know. So then this guy grabs the syringe and okay, this is what I learned. I thought I had a phobia of getting my blood drawn because it's never been needles for me, but it's like, I can't stand, like I can't even be touched here. Like I go into like full fight or flight mode and like, it's really bad. I like full on like near panic attack phobia every time I have to get my blood drawn. Guess what I found out? It has nothing to do with blood or being drawn. It is sharp objects being placed in very vulnerable spaces. So I'm like, first of all, I'm like trying to like hold my junk out the way because I'm like, you know, hey, like, yeah, like just go. And he's like, do you need to move your hands? Like, because I got a syringe. Like, you need to move your hands. I'm like, yeah, but I really want to like cover that area because I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. And he's like, no, I understand, man, but like, you know, you just gotta like, he's like, just like grip the rails. So I go, oh fuck.
Grip the rails?
So I literally,
What doctor is this?
I mean,
Bite on this piece of leather.
right.
Grab the rails.
So
Take
I'm
a shot of whiskey.
Yeah, so I reach my hands around the bed. The rails aren't up, they're down. And the lady's like, so I'm like holding them under the bed really tight. And the nurse is like, do you want me to put them up? I'm like, no, we're good here. Like, and somebody's like, all right, let's do this. He's like, just a heads up, I'm going to have to give you like multiple. I'm like, okay.
Why? Okay.
Because you have to like where it was at, like he has to hit like all the nerves around there, right?
Okay.
6
No!
fucking times with this giant needle going in, and he's like, okay, and it's in. I'm like, yep. And he's just like, all right, you're gonna feel some burning. And I'm like, mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, so that's there. And then he's like, goes, hits another spot, and I'm like, again, this is all like this far from my junk, and so I'm just like, this is awful. And the worst part was after the 5th one. He goes, okay, and then I'm like, oh, and he's like, just one more, and I was like, what?
Get that false hope.
Oh, I was
Great
so
job, dude. You powered through. Now just one more.
I was
And we're
so
all done
Yeah.
after this one.
exactly. I was so mad. Because I was just like, dude, this is not fair. This is not fair. You saw where I'm at. You said, okay, you should know. So then he gives me that one last one, and I'm like, oh, God, fuck. Okay. So then he's like, is it numb? And he's like poking at it. I'm like, almost. And then we're like, okay, we're there.
He's just
Good
like there
enough.
swatting at your balls.
Yeah, pretty much.
Feel
That's all he
that?
was. Yeah, well, that's the other part. He's like, when he's like checking it out to make sure it wasn't a hernia, he's like squeezing it, and it was like really uncomfortable.
Oh.
So then he pulls out the syringe and pops off the top, and he's just like, all right, this part you really don't have your hands anywhere near. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, what? But then he just like starts to go, and I'm like, hey, like, can we get some info here? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
Like,
how's
you
it
gotta-
going? What's going on?
Yeah, like, are we gonna slice it? Are we poking at it? What's happening? Because you got a syringe, a really really sharp one, right next to my balls. And he's just like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna poke it straight in. And I'm like, oh okay. And so I'm back on the rails, right? And I'm just like, okay, And then he goes and just boom, just pushes it straight into the center. It was a lot of pus and blood. I also realized I told this on the post show for Death Battle Cast, so Cody has had to hear this twice now, and I grossed him the hell out the first time.
So was it anything to do with the impact, or was
Nope.
it an ingrown hair?
Oh, just total coincidence.
It was
that the
yeah,
two-
it was a complete coincidence in the spot it was in and everything. Yeah, so it was either just like an ingrown hair or like a heat blister or something that just never made it to the surface and got infected under there.
God,
Um,
dude.
I hated
So-
that. I hated that stuff.